Uh,
Shit, just flip it.
yeah.
Just flip the whole thing. Oh, front camera. There we go.
Front camera. There we go.
Oh, back camera.
There we go.
Can you help me with this? First, can you get that charging piece for me, please? Why are they signing up right now?
I don't know.
See this? It's...
Maybe because I reposted it.
You sure did. See, it's kind of leaning. Come on, man.
Do you want me to just hold it?
You know, it needs to be tightened. Wait.
Ask Chelsea. By the streets. Hello, come back. I know he's gonna get us off.
Where are you going to get a tripod? I'm happy to live on my phone with Instagram.
Can we use this or? What they had already said.
Hey everyone, just want to let you know we're almost ready to get started. We have maybe 5 more minutes. We're just finishing the tech setup to make sure we can live stream to our audience online, but we'll be getting started shortly. Thank you.
Huh? You feeling mad? Yeah, it's okay.
How are there only 22 followers active right now? Am I on my personal account? Yes, I am. You got them waters?
Yeah, I did.
No, you're good. $2.97. That's good. And then I'm gonna go through and ask them to reshare it.
I'm from Houston.
You know how to share
So
live?
I'm like, yeah, like
How does this work? Can you help me, please?
okay.
Before I cry. That's good enough, right? I'm on 41.
Let me go get the lock charge out of your truck. Oh yeah, no, 100%. And
Yeah.
my family.
We'll need that. We might need a charger too.
Whatever. Were you?
I need to stand right here. That's right here.
Oh, just pop it up.
Is this
Let's move this up and I'll go get the table.
is this the same charger?
No. That's different. Can you get the one in my car?
But do you have a block for it?
What?
Do you have a
A
block?
baby one.
Where at?
The same place.
Yes, in the car. Okay. Yeah, so we're trying to figure it out. Yeah. Right. I'm ready to. I kind of tried everything. Just get it to me. It's really special. So.
Where are we putting it?
I'm going to move it up so you're a little closer.
Yeah, we're about to go live on mine, and we're going to send them the link, tell them to go share ours to their platform. Yeah.
It's not the best, but it'll work.
She's getting the other charger from the car. More than one plug down there. Is that what's going on?
We're gonna probably move this one.
Yeah, yeah.
How many?
Just one or two.
Oh, this is being weird. Being sideways.
That's Facebook, right? So that's fine. I'm starting this live. I'm going on. So, you know, Instagram, what do I do now? We're live on MTX, but how do we get them to share?
Good evening, everyone.
You got the plug with
Good evening.
I know. I thought you were going to put the
Here on
iPad
front
on
row.
there. I couldn't
Good
find
evening,
it.
everyone. Can you hear me in the
what's
back?
in there.
If there's
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here for our Know Your Rights panel. This is a moderated panel, and I'll introduce our moderator in just a moment.
Not that.
But I want to thank you all for being here, members of the media who are here, and all of you who are attending in person, and our online audience who is up and joining us on several different platforms. I believe the Dallas County Democratic Party is sharing on their platforms, and the North Texas Democrats are also sharing on their platforms. I want to thank all of the allied organizations who made this possible, and all of the sponsors who made this evening possible. And then also to our esteemed panel tonight, who's going to give us a ton of information.
She just got the link.
They're going to introduce themselves in a moment, but they're really individuals who need no introductions because you all know their work and you know how incredible they are in this space. So thank you all for being here this evening. I want to introduce to you, to our online audience, and to some of you in the room tonight, to an individual who is tried and true in this space. One of my favorite elected officials, one of my favorite allies in this movement, because she shows up not just for her community constituency, but for all of us, right? This is tonight when we talk about knowing your rights and talk about our most vulnerable neighbors. These are issues that affect all of us. I believe someone said no one is free until we're all free. And so I believe that the person that I'm going to introduce really embodies that message, embodies that work. But that's none other than the Honorable Dr. Elba Garcia. Give her a round of applause.
Buenas noches. It's a pleasure to be with all of you here today. Thank you for being here. As an immigrant myself, I know, what it is to come to this country, the most beautiful country in the world, and have a dream. And that's what I'm so proud of North Texas Democrats and Dallas County Democrats, because you all are always ready to help communities in need, communities with a dream, communities that need to be, embraced as part of our beautiful American fabric. So with that, let me thank, our Democratic Party Chair, Mr. Carl Coleman, for his leadership, for his and of course, I thank you, Marty, for helping us organizing this as well. And I will be remiss if I don't say that I'm very proud to announce to all of you today that my new Chief of Staff, Ms. Jasmine Flores, former Vice Chair of the Democratic Party, Dallas County Democratic Party. So thank you for allowing her to moderate today. You're going to see how beautiful, smart, and the kind of leadership that we have right here in Dallas County. We know this is a tough issue, and we know that our community needs to be informed. They need to know. We cannot continue, this civil rights issue on the backs of young kids. Jocelyn Rojo didn't have to die. Didn't have to die because these issues were affecting her family and her life. And we know that there's many Jocelyn's right here in Dallas County. We have around 300,000 undocumented citizens in this county. And that tells you it's almost, a portion of the amount of registered voters that we have in Dallas. So it's important. This issue is very important. I'm glad that I am surrounded by people that care and individuals that have the knowledge to share with all of us. An educated community is an empowered community. Muchísimas gracias a todos por estar aquí. Es un placer y un privilegio. Gracias por hacer conciencia de lo que necesitamos hacer y educar en nuestra comunidad. And with that, Ms. Jasmine Flores, Chief of Staff of Dallas County.
Muchas gracias, comisionada. Thank you, Commissioner. Gracias a todos por estar aquí. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to stand here before these great attorneys and experts when it comes to immigration and the rights that we all, whether or not we have documented status, we all have constitutional rights. So it's really important for not just those that are here. I know that some of us are documented here, but we all have friends and family and neighbors, vecinos, tías, primos, that we know who could use this information. So if they weren't able to join you today, if they weren't able to join the live stream as well, take some of those red cards that are available here, take some of this wisdom that you gained from these experts, and please share it and keep spreading the word, because what happened with Ms. Jocelyn is very preventable. We do not need children and just our community members to feel that they don't have value and that they don't have rights. So, con eso, vamos a empezar hoy. I'm really excited about having our panelists here. We're gonna let everybody introduce yourselves. If you could take a minute to just introduce you, the work that you do if you're here with an organization, or if you have an organization you represent, you can share that, and then we'll pass it on to the next panelist, please.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me here.
It sounds
My name is Kathleen Martinez. I'm an immigration attorney. I own Martinez Immigration Global. I'm the managing attorney. We have about 45 employees and thousands of clients all over the world. Obviously, most of them undocumented, so we're very familiar with Know Your Rights, very familiar with exactly how many rights undocumented immigrants do have in the United States, which is obviously very important right now. So we're very, very honored to be here, because usually we are educating people on more of an online federal scale. So to be here with our local community is really important as a Dallas local.
Hello everyone, my name is Alejandro Martinez. My wife, Attorney Martinez, and I, we just have such a passion for the immigrant community. I am a first-generation immigrant. I was born in Mexico. I came to the US when I was maybe around 6 years old. I went through the whole path of becoming a resident, then a citizen, and ultimately I became a mechanical engineer. I'm an engineer for probably the world's biggest automotive company. And a lot of my work is used with customers all over the world, which goes to show how important immigrants are, that we take parts in everything that we do here, whether it's an attorney, or it's an engineer, or doctor, or everything, right? This country was built by immigrants. It's so important that people out there don't paint us with that brush that, oh, they're just bringing in the bad people. No, there's a lot of us that care about our communities, that care about making this country a better place, and also helping those that didn't have the privileges that I did. That's one thing that I want to do is, share with others that are behind me trying to do the same thing, trying to do the American dream. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Rodriguez Walquez. I'm a partner at Soul's Law. I practice personal injury, so not one that is touched very directly with immigration. But one of the key things is I'm going to repeat myself. Same story. Came in here very young. Eventually was afforded DACA, and I'm very proud of that. And although now we have permanent status, it doesn't take away the fact that I felt what that was like and the fear of what that was like. I was one of the few lawyers in the first wave of DACA beneficiaries to become a licensed attorney. And with that, I made it a duty that I wanted to represent the small people against the big companies, right? And I wanted to do that David versus Goliath fight. And now more than ever, people tell me, well, Jessica, you do personal injury. Why are you talking about immigration? What is it to you? Well, I'm Hispanic, I speak Spanish. Most of my clients are immigrants, and they're fearing for their lives. And although it doesn't affect my pocketbook, it affects my heart and my community. So I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna educate people, and I'm gonna use my power, my stance, and what I know to educate them, because right now the only way we can fight is through education, through knowledge, and through unity in our community, because they're taking away our humanity and we just can't let them do that. So I'm very glad to be here. Dallas has a special place in my heart. My wife is from Dallas, all her family is here. So it's a pleasure to be able to travel here and meet with all of you and learn from all of you as well. Thank you for having me.
Good evening, buenas tardes. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I'm Victoria Diabe, and I'm honored to be here. I want to start off by thanking the North Texas Democrats, Marty and his whole team, for organizing this. Meadow. Also, shout out to Somos Tejas, Ramiro Luna, the founder, who has done incredible work for years, not just in Texas, but across our country. Other leaders in our community, I see like Asalia, Alejandra, Leslie, and also want to, and Eric Cedillo, who is the president of the Mexican American Bar and founded the March to the Polls and has been doing a lot of work in this space for a while, but especially to Dr. Garcia, who paved the way for so many of us to even be able to run for office. Thank you for sponsoring this event and for just all of the incredible work that you've done. So I'm honored to be here with all of y'all. Just quick background on me. I was born and raised here in Dallas. I'm the daughter of a dad que vino de un pueblito cerquitas a Guadalajara. We were talking about Guadalajara, neighbors from Zapotlanejo. And, decided to become an attorney to use the law to advocate for our people. I was the first Latina in a really long time. We had no Latinas serving in the Texas House, and ran and unseated a Republican incumbent in 2016. And was honored to serve for 8 years in the Texas legislature, just finished my term. And so we had some huge battles. And so the things that we are seeing now are things that we have been warning about for years in the Texas legislature. And Texas is one of the battleground states where on the front lines, dealing with Governor Abbott and really anti-Latino, anti-immigrant attacks on our community, it's just, what's happened in Texas is really spread across the country. And so we've got to continue fighting. Thank you to the Democratic Party for opening your doors for events like this. And estamos aquí para servir. Queremos que nuestra comunidad sepa que hay muchos abogados en nuestra comunidad que están aquí listos para apoyarlos. And I'm just so honored to be with this amazing group of panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, let's give it So we have 5 questions that we planned for the panel. If time permits, we'll open it up for audience questions. So what I would like for us to do is organically, if you would like to respond to one of these questions, please feel free. And then let's give 2 to 3 minutes per person, and we'll go from there. Okay? All right. La primera pregunta. How can an undocumented worker protect themselves from ICE while on the job? And I'll just translate myself into Spanish as well. ¿Cómo puede un trabajador indocumentado protegerse de inmigración mientras está en el trabajo?
It's very, very important to know your rights. Have that red card on you at all times. Undocumented immigrants do have constitutional rights, contrary to what adversaries say on the internet or Facebook. If you are in your workplace and ICE has come to your workplace, first of all, they need a warrant, and it needs to be signed by a judge. And the warrant needs to be very specific as to where in your workplace they were allowed to go in. If they start lining you up and asking for your status, one, if you do have some kind of status, whether it's TPS, DACA, green cards, make sure to provide that for them. You're okay to do that. But if you don't, your vocabulary is going to be very, very limited. One, right to remain silent. After that, you don't have to say anything else. Or right to speak to your attorney. Silent attorney, nothing else beyond that. And it's very, very important not to get aggressive. ICE officers can get aggressive. They can break the law. They can absolutely get aggressive with you, but you have to be the bigger person. Because then you give them cause to detain you. And under the recently passed Lake and Riley Act, once they detain you, if you're subject to ICE jurisdiction, then they can deport you. So that's very, very important. There have been a lot of circumstances where people have been arrested and detained despite asserting their rights, so their rights get violated by ICE officers. And I know it feels like that doesn't matter, but a good lawyer will get you out of detention very quickly, especially if your rights have been violated.
Thank you, Attorney Martinez. Anybody else? Alejandro?
Para nuestros amigos y amigas que están indocumentados, si tienen miedo de que el Departamento de Migración va a llegar a su trabajo, es importante saber que tienen derechos. No tienen que responder si les hacen preguntas. Es muy importante que pidan si el oficial de inmigración tiene una orden de juez firmada. Y por favor pidan ver esa orden de juez. Puede ser que estas personas de inmigración traigan un documento que es falso o una orden que no está firmada por un juez o una orden de juez pero que puede ser para otra cosa. Es importante verificar ese documento. Es también muy importante que mantengan, que no se pongan agresivos, porque si les dan causa, como lo que acaba de decir Rosa, bajo la nueva ley que acaba de pasar, si les das causa, ellos te pueden detener y deportar. Ahora, si tienes documentos, obvio, o enseñas tus documentos, también si algo está pasando mal, si ellos se ponen agresivos contigo, graba el evento. Entonces, saca tu teléfono, empieza a grabar eso, puedes usar eso para que te ayude en el futuro.
I think this is great advice, and one of the things that I commend people is also as business owners, there's many people that know they have undocumented immigrants, and like they mentioned, they also need to know that they don't have to let someone into their business if they don't have the right one. And so I think we have to have a push of employers also being pro-immigrant, protecting, regardless if or not there is an undocumented worker in there, they need to know their rights because they can also end up in hot waters, right? If it's found out that they're hiring somebody that is undocumented. But as I mentioned, I think that within the community, I've heard all these stories where people have these escape routes already planned, right? So I'm gonna jump underneath that box, and I know that there's a little crevice behind the refrigerator that's gonna hide. But like they mentioned, things are a little bit different now, right? If you take off running, and now could they use that as probable cause, right, to detain you? If they think that you are being deceiving, so now it's a little bit different from what back in the day, in the early 2000s, there were all these waves as well. And people just had all these different routes that they were going to take, how they were going to hide, if they had, an extra set of clothes that they were going to change into to drop their uniform right away and not be seen as a worker. But we have to be very careful with that as well. So just, while we give you the legal aspect of it, there's also the practical aspect of it, but just know that things are changing. And ICE knows that, right? That's why they're passing all these laws to try to get you anywhere that they can. But remember, shut up, get a lawyer. Shut up, get a lawyer. Cállate, agarra un abogado, no digas más. No importa que te creas más inteligente que los de ICE, no digas nada. Y guarda la información de ella. Save her information so you can call her right away.
Gracias. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to if a driver with documents is pulled over, what rights do undocumented passengers have while in the car?
It's the same rights that you have anywhere, as long as you are physically located in the United States. You have the right to remain, you have constitutional rights. So if you're pulled over, I think the very first question you should be asking is, why are you pulling me over, right? And if they're not arresting you or charging you for something, then you ask, am I free to go? Because then they actually have to give you a reason why they're not letting you go. But it's also the exact same rights as, are you arresting me? And if you are, right to remain silent, right to call your lawyer, right? And also just not getting aggressive. Now remember, there's a right to search and seizure, that's your constitutional right as well. They need to have cause to search you or your car. All of those rights apply to you, whether you have documentation or not. And police officers in certain counties are working with ICE, and now they kind of compose as ICE now, right? So that's very important, where I've had clients detained in more red counties per se, and police officers can look up the removal order. And they don't know what they're doing because they say, you have a warrant. They don't have a warrant, they have a removal order from like 20 years ago when they were children. And so it's very important if you have a lawyer to call your lawyer, because then your lawyer can easily tell them, they're not under your jurisdiction. So what happened with my client is they were pulled over in Florida, and the police officer said, you have a warrant, and he got really confused because he has a removal order from when he was a child. His parents, and they all entered unlawfully, and they got detained right away. And when you're a child back then, you got kind of put in removal proceedings with your entire family. So I got on the phone, spoke with the police officer, let them know that they already have a case in formal removal proceedings. They're not under ICE's umbrella, and that they need to let them go because we're already dealing with it. They also have a pending green card application. So if you filed any kind of application, DACA, TPS, work permit, green card, just having your receipt notice on you that the government gives you usually is good enough. That or a retainer with your lawyer. And what he told the police officer is, I have a pending green card application. I already have this going. I'm going to get a green card. He doesn't really say much before I got on the phone, and they let him go because they realized, oh, this is not my area. This is a judge. This is USCIS. I can't easily detain this guy. It's good to know that you're really only subject to ICE jurisdiction if you're here for less than 2 years, you have a criminal history that actually makes you deportable, not some misdemeanor, and you have a removal order. Otherwise, you're wasting your time, ICE is wasting their time, an attorney will get you right out of being detained if you are detained.
Thank you. This is an area that's common for me for personal injury, because a lot of clients sometimes call me from the scene and they're like, I don't want to call the cops, I'm here undocumented, or my wife is undocumented, yada, 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 right? You don't have to fear calling a cop in regards to an accident if you were the victim of an accident. But you also don't need a police report, right? So a lot of people say, well, I'm really banged up, I'm bleeding, and I'm gonna need a police report to handle this case. No, you don't, right? First of all, you don't have to, so you don't have to call the cops if you don't want to. But even if you do, I've had thousands and thousands of cases where my client doesn't have a license, right? And they'll know that maybe they signed you for no license, but as long as you have your insurance card, that's really how they let you go. Make sure you show financial responsibility, and they might just give you a ticket for no license, but they're not going to detain you. And so another thing that we want to spread is hope, and make sure that you know that if you're a victim of a crime, you can still call the cops. Don't let someone use your undocumented status against you to put you in fear to not call the cops and not get the help that you need, right? And so there's so many protections that you still have. And there's so many barriers from police officers that they can't enact on you to detain you. So please don't let that stop you from getting the help that you need. But just two things to remember: if you find yourself in a situation where you know that you may or may not need a cop, you don't need the police report, don't call them, go on your way, exchange your insurance information, move on, right? If you do need to call them because you suspect somebody is drunk driving or something like that, okay, call them. You're not gonna get in trouble in most counties, like she mentioned. There are some in more rural states. I can tell you Harris County is putting a fight as to whether they work with ICE and stuff like that. But don't let that stop you. However, like she mentioned, use this opportunity to remind your uncles, cousins, and stuff like that, that one little copita, one little drink is enough to get you detained. Don't make those silly little mistakes on the road, because you will put your whole family in danger. So let's act a little bit more conscious on the streets and when it comes to that. Yes.
Voy a dar la información en español. La cosa importante, si la policía los detiene después de, como si tienen pasajeros que no tienen documentos, es importante que uno no tiene que dar la información de su estatus migratorio. So, también, igual como en el trabajo, pueden decir que escoge no hablar y quiere hablar con su abogado. La otra cosa es manténganse calmados y no entre el pánico. Si también le piden identificación, una de las cosas más importantes es si tienen identificación, sí lo pueden dar, pero no den identificación falsa. Eso es un crimen. So eso es bien, bien importante. I'll just say that in English, that part in particular. If you have identification and if you have false identification, do not give the false identification to police, because that in and of itself is a crime. Pero no está obligado a ofrecer su estatus migratorio. Tiene el derecho de permanecer en silencio, y también si le preguntan si quieren investigar su carro o revisar lo que tiene adentro del carro, uno no tiene que dar su consentimiento. Eso también es importante saber. A veces el policía le pregunta, ¿puedo mirar en su cajuela? Y no tiene que abrir su cajuela, nomás dice, prefiero hablar con mi abogado. Eso también es algo importante.
Muchas gracias. Now, the Department of Homeland Security had some protections and spaces that were protected up until the new administration took over just a few weeks ago. And one of those spaces that was protected were schools. That said, what rights do undocumented students and/or what protections, if you want to speak to that, do undocumented students have while they're in school?
Can I speak to that? Yes. So Plyler versus Doe is a landmark Supreme Court case that says that undocumented children have a right to a public education. We see an attempt to erode and get rid of landmark cases like this now that we have a completely new makeup on the United States Supreme Court. We saw how they reversed 50 years of precedent with Roe v. Wade. Laws like Plyler v. Doe are also at risk of being reversed. So we need to closely keep an eye on that. In fact, there's legislation right now in the Texas House seeking to try to get rid of this. In the last Republican primaries in Texas, one of the key issues that Republicans were infighting was about specifically this law and whether undocumented children should or should not be in school. So this is a real threat on landmark precedent that we as that our Democrats need to really speak out about and ensure that we're doing everything that we can. Pero para nuestra comunidad latina, tienen que saber que hay una ley federal, un caso federal que le da protecciones a niños menores de edad en las escuelas públicas. Uno tiene el derecho de ir a las escuelas públicas y no deben de tener temor de ir a la escuela, no deben de preguntar de su estatus migratorio en las escuelas públicas. ICE no debe de conductar raids o no deben de entrar en la escuela porque por esta razón que dijo. Pero eso, en estas situaciones es importante también que sus hijos tengan el teléfono de alguien que, un contacto de emergencia, pero queremos proteger las escuelas. One other thing I'll say, places of worship are also at risk. My first session in 2017, Senate Bill 4 back then was a big anti-immigrant bill that we were fighting. I passed an amendment to protect places of worship onto SB 4. We need to keep an eye out that they don't erode that, that they don't try to reverse that. And it was not easy to get legislation like that, but we did get bipartisan support to get that language onto the bill. But we want to continue to ensure, I think that's just something to also put on our radar, that places of worship, we want to keep them as real sanctuaries.
Thank you, Representative Miabe. To add to that, it's the same rights, right, as adults. We need to have those frank conversations with children, and I know they're difficult talks, and we've seen the effects that this situation has had on children, and we don't want that to repeat. So have that conversation with your children. We've had adults really start applying for a college, and then they realize, hey mom, am I here undocumented? And they didn't know, right? So we need to have that conversation with children as hard as it may be, like Representative mentioned, make sure that they have an emergency card with them and everything. But also, this is a call of help to the school districts to make sure that they stand their ground like Chicago did and don't let ICE inside. We need to stop playing checkers versus chess, right? We need to be playing chess because we knew this was coming. They want to say, you don't get federal funding, right? If you let an undocumented student, you don't get federal funding, and that's where they're going, right? And they're just enacting these bills to make sure they get to the Supreme Court, and then they get the Supreme Court to say, we know you're gone, right? But what happens here? We have undocumented immigrants who own homes, who pay taxes. Those taxes go to the school system. So how are we going to address that issue, right? And the school systems need to understand that there is this whole misconception that undocumented immigrants cannot own property. They sure do. It's not just sales taxes. There's so many that pay taxes to IT numbers, right? And because why? They want to make sure that they keep a history so that when they're given the opportunity, they can say, look, US, I've been paying taxes for years without getting a single benefit. I don't get Social Security, I don't get Medicare, I don't get this, right? And I've been paying my taxes, but you're not gonna let my kid go to school? And so this is a call to action to people that are not immigrants. Call your representatives, let them know that you're watching, you know what's happening, you don't want your neighbor to be affected. Call the school system and say, how can I support you? How can I help you, right? Do you guys have access to the legal force that you're going to need to challenge this, right? So it's more than just telling the kids how to protect themselves, but helping the adults around them to be ready for war, essentially. Figuratively speaking, okay?
Thank you. One additional thing I want to call out is, as an undocumented immigrant, you also have the right to go to public universities, go to school, and even though they don't qualify for federal financial aid, as of right now, there is TAFSA, which is Texas financial aid that's available. So I just want to make sure that we're all aware that even though you or your primos, your family, neighbors are not documented, they can still go to college as of right now. And as has been said by Representative Miabe, we need to make sure that we continue to have those rights. So advocating on behalf of our community members so they can continue to educate themselves.
May I mention another law I passed since you mentioned TAFSA? Actually, Asalia gave me the idea. We learned that the undocumented students had to apply by paper for the state financial aid. I passed a law, thanks to her help, where it is all electronic now, and it's taken a few years to get that enacted, but so that all students can not have to apply individually, just streamline the process. And so I want people to be aware of that as well.
Thank you for that. And on that note, I also want to call out, in order for those students to be able to apply for that financial aid, parents need to start applying for e-deans, filing your taxes years in advance to start documenting things so that they can even qualify for that, for the Texas financial aid that may be available for them. So just wanted to call that out as well. All right, now, moving on, how long does it typically take to get a US visa or citizenship? And this is kind of I know not everybody can even apply for these things, so maybe you can speak to that as well, because there's a lot of assumptions that are being made and thrown out there on socials.
Very long time. Takes a very long time to get legal status in this country. There is truly no right way. We were in the Capitol yesterday, talking to representatives, where one of them had to draw out a chart of how to do it the legal way to explain to the Republican colleagues exactly how it works. Like, it was an actual child-proof chart. And that's how bad it is here in the United States. You have to explain that to Ivy League educated people for them to understand. And visas, it depends on the type of visa you get, but on average, a couple years. Visas aren't bad depending on the embassy, right? I deal with the embassy a lot in Ciudad Juarez. That is the most disorganized, corrupt embassy ever. They take a lot longer. When it comes to citizenship, that's not bad, but it's actually getting a green card. That is the mountain that I have to deal with as an immigration attorney. Getting a green card, you can't earn your right to the green card. It's very, very rare. You usually have to have someone sponsor you. You have to have an immediate relative with legal status in the country. You have to apply for a job and meet very strict educational requirements to be able to get sponsored by your employer here in the country. And then you're part of a lottery system. So there's something called the H-1B, where an employer can sponsor you to come over here if you're very educated and very skilled. But that's not it. You have to put your name in a hat and they have to draw it out, right? Only like $50,000 a year. I think it's at $65,000 this year. And if you're from certain countries, it's even harder. So we have the most H-1Bs from India. So India, it's like a 25-year wait to get your H-1B just to put it in the hat for the lottery. If you've been a victim of a crime, you can get a U visa. That's a 7-year wait, and that's on a lottery system as well. So there is truly no form that you can just fill out. There's no fee that you can pay, despite what Trump is saying about this golden visa. That's not going to happen. There's truly no right way, and that's why it takes so long. It is unrealistic. A lot of people will be waiting their whole life before they're ever eligible for a green card.
All right, thank you so much. When applying for a US visa or citizenship, does that process put the applicant at risk of being flagged by ICE or other government agencies? Al solicitar una visa o la ciudadanía estadounidense, ¿corre el solicitante el riesgo de ser identificado por inmigración o otras agencias del gobierno?
So when you apply for a green card, I mean, you are subjecting yourself to a background check. Of course, you're getting flagged. But where it's a risk, where it's risky, is if you have something that makes you deportable. So if you enter the country unlawfully, if you apply for asylum at the border, you're usually immediately put in removal proceedings. If you apply for asylum and get denied, you get put in removal proceedings. A lot of people don't know that. If you are arrested of a crime that makes you deportable, not convicted, you can put yourself at risk and you can get deported. It's something called the reason to believe standard, where if an embassy officer or a USCIS government officer thinks that you committed a crime, even if you never committed it, they can use it against you as if you did. So it is risky, but what I recommend is filing something called a FOIA. So it stands for the Freedom of Information Act, where you are legally entitled to whatever the government has on you, risk-free so far. So when you get that information, a lot of attorneys request that from my clients. Basically, I want to know entries or exits. I have a lot of millennial clients who are dreamers who they're not really sure how they came into the country. They're not really sure if they've left a few times. If they have an arrest record that they're not sure of. You want to request your FOIA before you ever file an application for a green card, because there are some circumstances where if you're applying for a green card, you don't want to trigger the government to look into your case and possibly put you in removal proceedings because you should have been there in the first place. A good opportunity or a good example of that is when you're applying for naturalization. You got a green card, and you committed a crime or something, and for some reason, you're able to keep your green card. And that happens a lot because when you renew your green card, it doesn't really trigger a background check. So you could commit like a felony and keep your green card, but then they'll apply for naturalization. They won't look into you until you give them an opportunity to. So it's very important to consult with an attorney. Because a lot of the times, I'll have a consultation and I'll look at the application and I'll say, don't do it, not worth it. Be lucky that you have a green card. Or they'll have a green card and they will leave the country. With a deportable crime on the record, not good. ICE can't take that away from you, Border Patrol can't take that away from you from back, but they can look into it and then they can put you in removal proceedings. So there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts with immigration. It's very confusing, like the chart, but very, very important to, even if you find yourself that you can't afford an attorney, to consult with one just to know where you're at before you risk applying for something that can flag ICE removal.
Can I add a question here? She's a wealth of knowledge, and today I had a follower give me a question, and I was like, I'm gonna have to ask Kathleen about it. And you guys are, we're so blessed to have her here because she really has it hot off the press, all the news and everything. But someone asked me, this whole registration database that they're promoting, and they're saying every immigrant needs to register. What do you think about that? Wouldn't that trigger a danger just to put you in the radar for ICE?
It is so stupid. I think you have to be a spectacular kind of stupid to think that that will work. It's basically what it is there's been, under the Immigration Nationality Act, this law has been a thing since 1940, where they require undocumented immigrants to register. No one in their right mind would register if they're undocumented with the government. This is because Trump is failing at mass deportation, as we knew he would, because he can't afford it, he doesn't have the funds, he doesn't have the employees, lack of infrastructure. There's no way you can realistically deport 11 million undocumented immigrants to the United States in 1 year, let alone 20 years. It just doesn't work, and he didn't do it the first time either. It's like the same concept of building a wall. It's just, anyone who thinks that a wall will work just like lacks intellect, in my opinion. And so when it comes to this registry thing, they're basically telling everybody, sign up for this registry, fill up your information if you're undocumented, meaning you've never entered with an I-94, you've never applied for anything. Basically, if we don't know that you're here, then you need to sign up and register yourself, which is just ridiculous. And then they say, if you don't, you're subject to criminal penalties, which is funny because it's not a crime to be here while you're undocumented, it's a civil violation. So he's making up a crime that doesn't exist. So you can't violate a law that's literally non-existent. So I'm waiting on him to make a case out of this because there's just no way. There's just no way someone is dumb enough to register themselves and put themselves. But I think his intention behind this executive order is basically to scare people, is to fearmonger them into either self-deporting or actually helping him deport people. It's funny how he's relying on immigrants to do his job.
Well said. Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, on a different topic but related to family separation, there's a specific legal document under the Texas Family Code. I practice family and civil litigation, and that allows an adult to authorize a caregiver in the event that the parent is separated from their child. And there's specific language that is included in there, but if that document is available, you can contact us, Mexican American Bar, different organizations to get that document. We highly recommend that folks get it if there's a concern, just to have it in a safe place. And you can decide, you can give authorization to individuals to enroll your children in school, get medical treatment, things like that. Para nuestra comunidad hay un documento legal bajo las leyes de Texas que le da la autorización a otra persona de confianza, darle los derechos en el caso, en un evento que si está separado de sus hijos, le puede dar diferentes derechos como para que los puedan meter en la escuela o tener tratamiento médico. Solo que hable con un abogado, el Mexican American Bar, diferentes organizaciones pueden dar eso o contactar a nuestra oficina también.
Thank you. Speaking of family readiness, that's a very important topic right now. One question that I would ask the panel is, what are the recommendations when it comes to children who, let's say you have an undocumented parent and you have documented children, would you recommend getting them a passport, getting there's dual citizenship potential, things like that? What are the recommendations for that family to prepare?
One of the things I will warn not to do is that you don't have to give up your rights as a parent. There's a movement, or some people think that, well, I want to terminate my parental rights and allow somebody else to adopt my child in the event. Like, parent rights in Texas are very strong. So to give up your rights as a parent, you don't need to do that because there are other protections and things that you can do. Para una de las cosas importantes, si uno le recomienda que termine sus derechos legales, no recomendamos que haga eso como un padre o madre para sus hijos. Hay personas que quieren que alguien más vaya a adoptar a sus hijos en caso de que están deportados a otro país, pero hay otras maneras de darle derechos a alguien más. So I do want to say that because we've heard a lot of talk about potential adoption.
Creo que en general la gente se debe de preparar en tener toda la información necesaria para sus hijos, ¿verdad? Si tienen alguna medicación, ponerla ahí, si es que el padre es deportado. Los pasaportes, creo que eso es en general a todos. Siendo de la comunidad LGBT, también, ¿verdad? Muchos ataques con la gente trans y todo eso, y ahorita tienen problemas con los pasaportes. Pero creo que todos en general deberían de tener sus pasaportes, toda su documentación, su certificado de nacimiento, todo lo que alguien necesitaría. Si tú no estás ahí como padre, ¿qué necesitaría la abuelita, la tía, verdad? Lista de doctores, lista de escuela, amiguitos, ¿verdad? Medicina, ¿qué alergias? Todas las cosas que alguien necesitaría, como decir, si no estuvieras ahí por cualquier cosa, están tus hijos protegidos, ¿verdad? Y eso va para todos. Ahorita es un momento que todos tenemos que estar preparados. Hasta en nuestra familia que fuimos, hicimos, renovamos los pasaportes, porque también hay muchos ataques con las parejas que en este momento, ¿verdad? Es otra, alguien que tiene en la mira. Pero sí, por favor, protéjanse, aunque esperemos siempre que no pase nada, pero es mejor estar preparados que nos agarren no preparados.
Thank you so much. All right, so our prepared questions have come to an end, but we would like to open it up for any audience questions. Yes, right here.
So I have three actually. You mentioned some of the counties that are working with or as you like off the top of your mind,
So I'll repeat the question. You mentioned that there are counties that are working with ICE. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then what are the counties?
sorry. Police departments in the counties that are working with or as ICE.
Okay.
Yes, that's a tricky question, but it's a good question. There's a program called 287G where a city can opt into working with the federal government on issues like that. But I will say that Dallas PD in particular, the chief has been vocal and we commend him. And as a community, we need to thank him for his stance on this. One of the key things that he has said is that there are racial profiling laws that they want to do everything to protect the citizens of the city of Dallas or the residents of the city of Dallas. And so Dallas PD in particular has vocally stated that they are not coordinating with ICE. But I can't speak to others.
Right. My second question is, when we were talking about the children, should children have additional engagement contacts with their documented instead of undocumented?
I think in general, if they have additional emergency contact. Sorry.
So when you were talking about the children in schools and having those kids emergency contacts, is it better to have an emergency contact with documented as opposed to?
Repeat.
Is it better for children of undocumented parents to have an emergency contact who is documented in their school documents?
As opposed to undocumented.
As opposed to undocumented parents.
I think as long as it's somebody who's trustworthy, that the parent has confidence in, because some family members don't have, trusted people that may be citizens or not, but.
More like in the legal sense.
If there's a preference, I think it depends on what the topic, what that person's going to be doing.
I think you're asking about like an ICE detention, right? Like if someone gets detained, yeah. So, I mean, yes, obviously, because this is what can happen. It depends on, I guess, if you're living with other people who are subject to ICE, and that's all of you, obviously you need someone who's not subject to ICE jurisdiction, right? So if you have someone obviously who cannot get deported, obviously that's a great idea. A lot of nonprofit organizations are doing like guardianship documents and helping people out with like certain, people who can help out, I guess, in the family sense, like family law. I am seeing that happen a lot all over the country, especially with my clients.
Okay, I have a question. You were talking about the resources involvement by the Texas Standard Code about the, getting other people, children.
Yeah, you don't.
Queer child programs.
I forget the chapter, I can look it up real quick and tell you.
All right, any other questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Carlos Pereira from News 49. We received some emails from our neighbors about this concern if regular people are afraid to do their taxes. So they have an ID number,
The question is, there's many people who are asking questions about, they have fears over filing their taxes with their ITIN number. So the question is, from a legal perspective, what is the recommendation for them?
I think like Kathleen was mentioning, right, we've seen on the news how Trump realized, I don't have the manpower to deport 11 million people, right? And he was talking about, like, I'm gonna use IRS officers to find out who's here undocumented and whatnot. I definitely think that's a stretch. I think that he's going to be met with a lot of resistance for that, because I mean, look at the IRS, it's already slow as it is, for everyone. Now you take away that and you weaponize them to be immigration officers, that's gonna be really hard. In my opinion, I don't know if she's the expert in immigration. In my opinion, I think that the safe route is to stay away from the radar of IRS and to continue to do things as you have. I really think that he's gonna have a hard time switching around IRS and suddenly turn it into ICE 2.0.
But the people again, I'm sorry, but the people again, you probably recommended to the immigrants to pay taxes because they use like anything longer. Okay.
Yes, they need to file the taxes. And you can do that with your ITIN number. And that's, you'll get a lot of immigrants don't pay taxes. That's exactly how they pay taxes, with their ITIN number. And it'll be relevant to them when they apply for naturalization.
Chapter 34 of the Texas Code.
I just wanted to add the topic of fear, because there are current laws right now that we should still follow, right? Some people are like, well, yes, that is the law, but should I go that route or not because in fear of, ICE coming after you? I think that this administration, that's what they are focusing on, which is fear in every aspect of everything that we do. Deportations and ICE raids have been happening forever, but they weren't really put on the spotlight. This administration wants to put them on the spotlight. And not only that, but his followers, or racist people, now you have them picking up the phone and reporting people, not just neighbors, friends, maybe even family members that don't like you or they don't like their mother-in-law or whatever they want to call ICE on them. So I think it's important to not give in to the fear. Continue to follow the current laws, because this administration is relying on fear for people to give in, and that's how we will fail. We must not fear what they're doing.
Just to add some more, we have to remember the power of ITIN in numbers. This is really the pathway that gave many undocumented residents almost the American dream, right? Even without papers. Because they build a credit score with it. They can go purchase a car, they can go purchase a home, and many places take that. And so if you stop filing taxes and then there's that gap, that's gonna close a lot of doors for those who are even trying to even get a loan for a business. So really use the power and the benefits of the ID numbers and the taxes there. Like he said, don't give in into the fear.
All right. I had one question up here and then we'll. All right, Mr. Ramiro Luna?
Yes, Ramiro with Somos, Texas. First, thank you to the panelists and the host for hosting this space for us. And, you provided great information on how to protect our community with education. And I wanted to see if you had any advice on how to fight back against legislation, whether it be at the federal, state, or local level.
I can speak to the state level. The legislature is in session every odd numbered year. They're in session right now through the end of May, and now that we're about to go into March is a key time when a lot of the committees are about to start meeting. So this is the time to join organizations that Somos has or other organizations that are advocating for the issues that you care about. If you can't make it down to Austin, you can send a message on social media to your legislator, especially your particular rep or state senator, whoever in whose district you live in. Because many times as these bills are coming up on the floor, they'll say, oh, nobody contacted me about that issue. But if you are flooding them, flooding their offices with calls, emails, tagging them on social media, they are paying attention. And don't give up all the way through session. Until session is over, we cannot give up. They need to hear your voice and your opinion on legislation.
All right. We have no room for show horses in politics right now. We need doers. We need doers. And you can call your representative regardless of whether you can vote or not. But there's a message for both sides, right? Because we've had in the past some Republicans who have done good work, even though we may not agree on everything, right? But right now, for the Democrats, I used to work in politics before I became a lawyer, right? We don't have room for somebody that's just a show horse and wants to be in front of the cameras and do no work. We need people that are gonna know how to trade those chips, know what deals they need to make. I'll trade you that law for this bill, help me with your support. That's the kind of people that we need, and we need to hold their feet to the fire. If you don't do their job, you are out. Because those of us that can vote, if you put my neighbor in danger, you are out. And I will make sure that everyone around me knows it, that you didn't have our support and you didn't work hard.
Amen. Thank you. All right.
My question is, I've heard them say that the people who are going to be picked up or stopped in the car or whatever should probably have an attorney. My question is, do we have a list of resources that we can provide? I go to senior citizens, are primarily Hispanic, and I would love to be able to bring a list of resources for them to contact and get attorneys now and not wait until something's going to happen. Is there a list?
The question is there a resource list available for our undocumented community that lays out available immigration attorneys and other organizations that will be able to provide services for them?
I would recommend, and I know he must have stepped out, Eric Cedillo, the Mexican American Bar Association and the Dallas Hispanic Bar Association are two organizations of Latino lawyers. It's not just Latino lawyers, but in particular, MABA has been organizing and has a group of activated attorneys that are ready to, they're doing trainings like this all across our Texas and are also ready and willing to serve our community.
What was the set?
It's the Mexican American Bar Association that Eric Cedillo is the president of, and the Dallas Hispanic Bar Association.
Law schools. I think of your local law school. Okay, they have immigration clinics, and they will put you with a senior attorney that oversees students, and most of it also is pro bono or low bono, like they call it. So look around, because I know we're having people watching beyond Dallas. Look at the law schools because they can get you some help, even beyond immigration. For those people with low income or cannot access a lawyer, check that out.
There are also organizations like Catholic Charities that have resources that are available. There's ACLU and Raíces that also have legal representation and just resources available for the community. I also know that there's other organizations like Somos Cejas is working on a resource list. The party is working on a resource list. So organizations are realizing the need for exactly what you're asking for, which is just a list. How can we get the support that we need? So,
And how will they distribute that?
Online, that's one of the ways, and I think really utilizing avenues like social media to share and distribute links directly to those lists will be very useful. All right, any other
Okay.
Property. Someone started and said that undocumented citizens have property. That's certainly the case. They own homes, they own land. So how do they protect their property? And whether they're deported or not, okay, they've got the property. What should they do?
The question is, how can undocumented property owners protect their property whether they are deported or not?
You can sign a power of attorney where you give the rights to another individual in certain circumstances to pay the mortgage, contact the mortgage company, and take actions with respect to real estate. Also be very, very careful of that because the powers of attorney have really broad powers. And so it needs to be somebody that's trusted and possibly look into including language that it only triggers in certain circumstances, so they don't take actions now while you're here and able to manage your own estate.
And you can change it.
Yes.
So yesterday y'all were in Congress, right, for the reintroduction of the American Dream and Promise Act. Question for y'all. That's really like motivating legislation, right? That offers like a pathway to legalization for TPS and DACA recipients, right? Is there a way, like we were saying, we need doers, right? I understand that there's organizations, but I guess I'm a little new to this, but of building that kind of momentum to get that thing passed in Congress, but from the ground up. Do we know? I mean, is Dallas, are the community leaders kind of really pushing that? Because that's a very motivating piece of legislation that most people on both sides of Congress would understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about your reps in the Capitol. They are the most important people in this country. They actually make our laws and they have to agree on them, which is crazy, especially right now. But we met with a lot of them yesterday, and what I learned, and the most simple thing that everyone in this room can do is call a rep and give them their story and ask them to agree on the bill easily. I mean, some of our reps, what I've realized is that DACA, it's only 538,000 people, right? A lot of people don't know about DACA. They don't know what dreamers are. They have no idea. A lot of Republicans think that they are undocumented immigrants who came here as adults. And that's just not I think education is really, really important. So when I was at the press conference yesterday, I realized I had to explain this like I'm explaining it to a 5-year-old. So just educating people on exactly what dreamers are, because a lot of Republicans are actually very supportive of dreamers the minute they understand what it is. They're like, oh, they came here as children, it wasn't their fault. Oh, they pay taxes, they have to be educated, you cannot have a criminal record to be eligible for DACA. So they're, the far right tend to take human away from the term immigrant, right? It's easier to vote against them. But the minute they realize that the dreamers are right next to them, that they're lawyers, doctors, sometimes policemen, depending on the state, teachers, they're upstanding citizens of the community, they tend to be more favorable. But honestly, calling your rep, even educating a rep on that, because they probably don't know, explaining what DACA is, doing what I do, advocate on social media. Every single person I meet, I'm like, you should be an influencer. Why are we posting more? Why are we educating people? Everyone has a phone. Everyone is addicted to social media. That is the easiest way to educate people, but also just calling your rep.
Okay, thank you.
And I mean it, call the reps. Don't let the dreamers alone. I saw it fell in 2010. I cried when it fell in 2010. So don't leave them alone. Even if it doesn't hurt you, even if you're here legally, please call your reps, not just once, not just twice. Make sure that you're heard. The dreamers have stood alone many years, time after time. Don't let this be one of those times again.
We're gonna do just 2 more questions. So I see one right here.
What does domestic travel look like for undocumented immigrants at the moment? Do you recommend avoiding it altogether? And in this area, they only have their Mexican passport.
Yeah, so traveling domestically up until January, I would have told you don't even worry about it. But lately it's kind of scary. It's for immigration attorneys, it's very humbling because the law is changing every 5 minutes. If you have a license in any of the states that allow you to have a driver's license, you're typically okay. If you have an unexpired foreign passport, you're typically okay. ICE is not hanging around at airports, but some of those airports do have those like face systems where they scan you and they look up your system and they look up your history. So if they see you have a removal order, right? Probably don't travel, right? Criminal history, probably not a good time to travel. So go at your own risk. Now, there's a lot of people on the internet who say, it didn't happen to me. I'm fine. You're fine. This is Trump's America, right? So as an attorney, I'm always telling my clients, just don't do it right now. Let's wait it out. Let's see how it works. I know Trump is doing a lot right now, and it'll fade off because he can't afford to do all of this for 4 years. Let's see how it works. But when it comes, I'd actually rather my clients fly if they have to versus driving because they're stops, right? El Paso, Arizona, let's not travel to red states if we can afford not to.
One more question? No? All right. I want to add one more thing on top of the work and reaching out to your reps. Most of you probably have seen that there are marches and there's rallies that have been happening, and while we commend all of the work and the advocacy we need to be able to speak on behalf of our undocumented community, there is a big march coming up, and I just want to make sure I call out LULAC, I call out Mr. Domingo Garcia, and all of the community leaders that are coming together to put this super mega marcha and make it a reality. I don't know how many of you all had the chance to attend the one in 2006. It was an amazing event showing the unity that our community can have and just the masses of us that are here. That is a lot of power. There were over 500,000 people that showed up in white shirts carrying American flags and speaking about the positivity and the value that our immigrant community has, and on behalf of bipartisan immigration reform. We're working right now to organize another marcha. It's gonna happen on March the 30th is the plan, which is one day before Cesar Chavez's birthday. So there's some symbolism there. And the goal here is to ensure that we're communicating that we also have a lot of numbers here. We have big support for bipartisan immigration reform. So if you're interested in joining and advocating, wear your white shirt, bring your American flag. There will also be American flags there. But you can go to supermegamarcha2025.com. You can sign up there and you'll get email reminders of the upcoming event. There's also going to be a lot of promotion on social media, and you may see us in the media as well. So just wanted to call that out. If you're interested, come talk to me, and I can give you more details. If you want to get involved in organizing as well, there's organizing meetings every Monday from now until the marcha happens. So just let me know, and you can join one of the subcommittees.
All right, that's a good time to register voters. So if you're deputized or able to get deputized to register voters at this event, will be needed.
Absolutely, thank you. All right, with that, any other remarks or comments from the panel? Thank y'all so much. I'm so grateful for the opportunity and honor. Again, if you're interested in how you can continue to advocate, just reach out to us. Also, Somos Tejas is right back there. They have an amazing fellowship program that has been lobbying in our state capital in Austin. Ramiro Luna is the co-founder, and he's the executive director. You can talk to him and his team, and they can tell you if you're interested in going to one of their Austin trips as well, and speaking to some of the representatives about the importance of all the issues, education, immigration, everything that is at stake right now. You can do that as well. And I just want to take a time right now before we fully wrap up to say thanks again to the Dallas County Democratic Party. Thank you to Commissioner Elba Garcia, my boss, he's amazing. And thank you to all of our panel for the
Yes, so, Monday morning, or Monday morning, you can just join. I would recommend if you're interested, you go to our website. Right now, the URL is going to change to 15 minutes. Here we have about 2025. Oh, good to see you. Yes, you can sign up there to volunteer and just say you're interested. And then we'll make sure we connect you with the right community, and you can just show up on Monday, and then we'll to meet. So nice to meet you. Yes, so I'm the former vice chair here in the
Oh, really? Like,